Okay, hi everybody. Roy's tank getting sanded down for polishing. So, thought I'd put that in there. And over top of the metallic, I can start with a little heavier sandpaper. That'll help get rid of all of the orange peel and stuff. So I put plenty of clear on this, and the way I'm able to get this as smooth as I want it to is I'm starting with 320 grit sandpaper. And I know some of you guys that know the business are going to say, 320, man, you're crazy. But there's so much clear on here. And how I'm sanding down at 320, it's a little special trick I taught myself. Years ago, in my body shop in Newport Beach, I was doing a 1961 or 62 Rolls Royce cloud. Yeah, it was a cloud, flying cloud, silver cloud. Anyway, it was a cloud, silver cloud, flying cloud, up in the clouds, whatever. And it had so many curves on it. There was just no way I could figure out how to get a block behind some sandpaper to sand all those radius and compound radius and reverse curves. And I came up with the idea about what I'm doing now while I was working on that car. So what I did was, I remembered using the detailing clay. This is a small chunk of detail clay. So it formed to the car when I would remove overspray and stuff like that. Detail clay is kind of like the magic eraser for paint jobs that are sitting around outside, and when you hear a detailing shop say, do you want us to clay your car? They'll put a little lubricant on the paint and they'll take a block of clay and they'll rub it down, and it's kind of like a magic eraser. It gets rid of everything that's topical on a paint surface, and then they wax or compound or polish. There's 3 different terms for 3 different steps, and I can teach you what those are. But what I noticed about the clay was it was form following. It followed the shape of the car pretty good, and I'm like, well, if that thing is stiff enough, and it's dense, it's rigid, if it can follow the shape of the car, if I introduce a medium in between it, meaning sandpaper or a rag with compound, I will not put grooves in the surface of the paint that I'm trying to have it be perfect. And that's exactly what I achieved, was almost near perfection, because with different grits of sandpaper, this conforms to a lot of shapes. I've even used 36 grit with the clay on old, like 1954, 1953, 1952 pickup truck beds that used to have the square metal, and then it would roll into a pipe. And that whole pipe area, to sand that perfect was a pain, but if you got the clay, it would program that shape. Every time you went across it, it programmed the good stuff into the new stuff. The good stuff, meaning the correct shape, into the new stuff. So you constantly were reprogramming the clay as it hit the factory original perfect shape, and it would introduce that shape little by little down the line. If you had some filler on there or primer on there or whatever, it wouldn't cut any flat spots. So on that Rolls Royce, I was going around the headlights and around the headlights, and then there was this little tiny turn signal right below it, and it was like, oh my God, how am I going to get in here and do all that? And that's what discovered this for me. So evermore, when I'm color sanding, I'll use a bar clay. The water keeps it pretty dense, because the warmer the clay gets, the more malleable it gets, and it flops around. So if you use cold water, it'll hold its shape for a much longer time. The friction of sanding warms it up, but it follows the shape. And I'm not afraid to use 320 grit over a heavy clear coat, because now I can't feel these lines practically. And I'll do this side that's in the camera just to show you. But right here, it's practically gone. And as you can see, I'm not struggling to get this to sand down, and I'm not worried about it cutting too much, because it can't cut, it can't overcut. I can over sand, don't get me wrong, I can over sand, but I can't overcut, because it's following the shape of the tank perfectly. So I'm never gouging this thing, unless one of the points of my sandpaper digs in I'm golden. Anyway, sanding it down at 320, following it up with 600. After 600, I'll hit it with 1200. 1200 will go to 1500. 1500 will go to 2000, and I'll polish. And I know there's enough clear on this because I'm the one that put the clear on it. So here's a 320 grit with how it's forming. That little outline right there is how it's forming against that tank. I don't know how well the camera's picking that up. So anyway, sand and polish time. Hope you picked up a little bit of that, and I'm gonna be back to work. Thank you.